Hello everybody, this is Carmen Killed the Cat, and welcome to your 10th C++ tutorial. In this tutorial we will be going over the static variable modifier. This should be a pretty quick tutorial, shouldn't be too hard, so let's get right into it. So to illustrate what the static keyword does, we're going to create a function, we're going to call it iterate, so void iterate, open and close parentheses, then we'll define it here. I need to put a semicolon there. Define it here, void iterate. And then in the function, we're going to create int iter, it stands for iterator. We'll set it to 0. And then we'll say standard count iter and standard endline and iter plus plus. You'll get why I'm writing this later. And then standard count iter and endline. So this may seem pretty useless. It's kind of like a for loop. It just creates a variable, add 1 to it, and then outputs it before and after 1 is added to it. But let's call this function. So iterate. I'm surprised that function name isn't already taken. So 0, 1. Actually, we need to call this twice to show you. So we'll call it twice. And now make a prediction about what's going to happen. So keep in mind that this is a local variable, so it gets destroyed after each function call. So make a guess pause the video, make a guess on what's going to happen, and unpause the video when you're ready to see. Alright, let's run it. 0, 1, 0, 1. So that window keeps opening. So the variable was deleted, and then it's set back to 0 once the function starts. So say you don't want the variable to be reset after every function call. Now the obvious way to do this would be to make the variable global. So now if we build this and run it, 0, 1, 1, 2. So it counted up and saved the variable because it's global. But if you remember from the functions tutorial or the references tutorial, I can't remember where I said it, probably both. Global variables are generally bad. In a big project, you'll need some of them, but you want to minimize the amount you have, especially for such a common variable name as this. You'll be using the keyword iter a lot in the STL libraries, really anything that involves iterating over anything, really. So we want to keep it within the function and not global. But obviously, if we run this again, 0, 1, 0, 1, it gets reset. But there is a way to solve this, and you may be able to guess it's with the static keyword. What the static keyword does is it keeps the value of a variable global while keeping the name of the variable local. So we can see this by going into the main scope, say int iter. Now, if the variable existed, Visual Studio would have a suggestion for it. So the function iterate exists, so we go iterate, and we see it right here. But when we typed in iter, there were no suggestions for it, so it doesn't exist. Also, let's create it again. In iter, if we hover over it, it should say 0, and it should also say static in iter because we have the static keyword here. And here it says static int, here it just says int. So these are completely different variables. But if we run this, 0, 1, 1, 2. So you can see with that the value of iter was saved over the multiple runs of the function. So this is a very good way to prevent yourself from clouding up global space. And another thing you may be wondering is why the variable doesn't get reset to 0, because in the declaration we set the variable to 0. So if the static keyword wasn't here, it would get reset to 0 each time, even if it was saved. But what static also does is it kind of puts a mark on the line that says once it's run once, never run it again in this function. So you don't have to worry about the variable getting reset to 0. So this is a very useful variable modifier. Try not to use it too much. There are sometimes better ways to do things. It's not the solution to every problem involving scope, but it is the solution to many. And we'll probably have another tutorial on this after we go over object types like structs and classes, which will be the next group of tutorials. So see you in the next tutorial.